Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Montclair. My name is Markus Haug. I use all pronouns and I serve as the Director of Music Ministries for this congregation. It's a pleasure to be with you in the space and online from wherever you're joining us. If you are in this sanctuary, please take a moment to make sure your cell phones, Roombas, and self-driving cars are turned off and so they don't interfere with our worship service. This morning, our hymn leaders are Jenny and Stephen Crooks, and we begin with a song that is based on a poem by the Sufi poet Rumi. Come, come, wherever you are. Please rise in body or spirit and join us. Continue with the African American spiritual, There's More Love Somewhere. A song about hope and resilience in dark times. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find Please have a seat.
Hello and good morning. I am the Reverend Charles Laughlin, and my pronouns are he, they, and I am serving as today's liturgist. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever age, ability, history, identity, gender, or sexual orientation, you are welcome to bring your full self here. Grounded in faith, we come together to nurture the soul, inspire hope, and bring into being a more just and a more loving world. Today's worship leader is Irene Cox, a member of our congregation who works diligently as part of the membership team. Reverend Anya and Reverend Scott will return to lead worship next week on September 10th. We live stream our services, and while we cannot guarantee that you are not caught on camera, it is our intention to focus our cameras on our worship leaders. If you desire a camera-free zone, please see a greeter who will escort you there. Please be sure to see your This Week at UUCM bulletin for other important information. And now, in the spirit of community and hospitality, let us reach out to one another and share the gift of welcome.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Our community is held by a covenant and a dedication to build the beloved community. Let's light our chalice as we share our chalice lighting affirmation. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. And let us open our hearts to love one another.
Good morning.
Actually, I need invocation to the left.
Good morning. Our invocation comes from the poet Marge Piercy. Here is her piece, To Be of Use. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes, almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals, bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo, with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
Called to find depth in our days and discover reverence in this hour, we seek a gentle meditation, a focused reflection, an ardent prayer, each as we are called and yet all together. As we enter into this space by hearing the lamentations, the requests, and the remembrances of our community, let us hear one another to heal one another. We light this candle of gratitude for the continued healing and unwavering strength of our beloved senior co-minister, Reverend Anya, as she recovers from a routine medical procedure. We light this candle to hold the daughters of Jane Rappaport as they prepare for the memorial service of their mother. This candle also shines for the life of Jane, a reminder of all she did to sustain this community. May her light continue to guide us towards justice and love. And we light this final candle for the joys and sorrows that are deeply felt but have not been spoken aloud. May we hold this silence as this silence holds us. May our listening inspire acts of love. Our prayer this morning is a poem by Joy Harjo, the first Native American to hold the honor of United States Poet Laureate. We gather by the shore of all knowledge as peoples who were put here by a God who wanted relatives. This God was lonely for touch and imagined herself as a woman with children to suckle, to sing with, to continue the web of the terrifyingly beautiful cosmos of her womb. This God became a father who wished for others to walk beside him in the belly of creation. This God laughed and cried with us as a sister at the sweet tragedy of our predicament. Foolish humans. Or built a fire as a brother to keep us warm. This God who grew to love us became our lover, sharing tables of food enough for everyone in this whole world. O sun, moon, stars, our other relatives peering at us from the inside of God's house, walk with us as we climb into the next century, naked but for the stories we have of each other. Keep us from giving up in this land of nightmares, which is also the land of miracles. We sing our song which we've been promised has no beginning or end. All acts of kindness are lights in the war for justice. We gather up these strands broken from the web of life. They shiver with our love as we call them the names of our relatives and carry them to our home made of the four directions and sing. Of the South, where we feasted and were given new clothes. Of the West, where we gave up the best of us to the stars as food for the battle. Of the North, where we cried because we were forsaken by our dreams. Of the East, because returned to us is the spirit of all that we love. Blessed be. We turn now to consider our many gifts and the way they call us to generosity. 80% of our offering will serve our congregation, and 20% will serve Good Success Academies, a Montclair-based nonprofit led by the Reverend Alan Shelton. Good Success Academies empowers youth to succeed in school, work, and life through college readiness and career readiness programs, including a farm stand that was held on our congregation's property in June. Ushers, please come forward. You can text UUCM plate and your amount to 73256. You can mail us a check with plate in the memo or simply place your gift in the offering basket. All of your gifts are worthy, and they are all received with love. That's me again. Our reading this morning is a letter from Joseph. Joseph is a Unitarian Universalist congregant who is incarcerated. Earlier this summer, the Reverend Michael Tino, co-senior minister of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, read a letter sent to him from a man named Joseph, who is an incarcerated member of his UU congregation. The value of sacrifice is relative. Without sacrifice, I would not be living life as I know it. If my mother hadn't sacrificed her time and put her dreams on hold, then she wouldn't have been able to raise me so lovingly. She was 20 years old, barely an adult, and I feel certain I wasn't planned. She probably had many other plans. Maybe traveling, concentrating on school. I thank Mom for her sacrifice. It was very valuable to me. Some sacrifices seem small to us, but they can be very valuable to the recipient. Perhaps you sacrifice some time once a week to go to a nursing home. If you have spare time, you would normally watch TV or spend it on the internet, but you could make a sacrifice that is really of little value to you, but could be of enormous value to the nursing home resident who has no family. Our sacrifices are an offering to the group soul of humanity. No matter how small or large, if it does good for one, it is good for all. Depending on my commitment and my intention, my sacrifice doesn't have to be public. When things are done without my attachment to the result, they are more pure and more powerful. Some people sacrifice all their lives in order that others may live. Some make small sacrifices by overcoming social awkwardness in order to share a kind word with a stranger. No matter how small a good thing is, it is still good.
You may be an ambassador to England or France. You may like to gamble. You might like to dance. You may be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls.
But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
Might be a rock and roll addict, prancing on the stage. You might have drugs at your command, women in a cage. Maybe a businessman, some high-degree thief. They may call you doctor, they may call you chief.
But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
You're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
It may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You may be a state trooper, you might be a young Turk, you may be the head of some big TV network. You may be rich or poor, you may be blind or lame, you may be living in another country other than another name.
But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
Ooh, you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, and you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
You may be a construction worker working on a home. Maybe living in a mansion, maybe living in a dome. You might own guns, you might even own tanks. You might be somebody's landlord, you might even own banks.
But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
You're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord,
but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You may be a preacher.
serve somebody. Serve somebody. Now then,
You may be a preacher with your spiritual pride.
maybe a city councilman taking bribes on the side.
You may be working in a barber shop. You might know how to cut hair.
You may be somebody's mistress. You may be somebody's heir.
But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
You're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody. It may be the devil, or it may be the Lord,
but you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Might like to wear cotton,
Might like to wear silk.
might like to drink whiskey.
Might like to drink milk.
You might like to eat caviar.
You might like to eat bread.
May be sleeping on the floor.
Sleeping in a king-size
Oh, but you're
bed.
gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
Oh, you're gonna have to serve somebody.
Serve somebody.
Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, you're gonna have to serve somebody.
You may be an ambassador to England or France. You may like to gamble. You might like to dance. You may be the heavyweight champion of the world. You may be a socialite with a long string of pearls. But you're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, indeed, you're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. So some of you will recognize that magnificent performance that we just heard. It's a song by Bob Dylan, written during his brief foray into Christianity. Today, I'm going to talk about service, not about the standard meaning of the term, but about what service truly does for us individually, not how it helps others, but how it helps us, and how we need to serve others mindfully in order to be whole. Most of us would agree that service is good for the world. I'm here today to talk about how service benefits us. Even if our main goal were to solely serve ourselves, in reality, we all end up serving something beyond ourselves. Whether it's a corporate status quo, our children's well-being, a disabled relative, a charitable cause, a home nicer than the next-door neighbor's, a long-held dream. There's no way around it. One way or the other, we have to serve somebody. And certainly, we are served, particularly those of us in a privileged economic class. In the grip of capitalism, we are served every day by the people who work underpaid jobs to help sustain our quality of life. From the undocumented workers mowing my lawn to the Asian communities of women giving me a mani-pedi. I became a Unitarian Universalist more than 20 years ago when living in Toronto. The congregation's co-minister at the time was Mark Morrison Reed, with whom some of you are familiar because of his work and writings surrounding being a Black UUer. When I relocated back to the United States, I joked that I now attended the church of Mom and Dad. My parents were elderly and ailing, and Sundays were spent with them in Connecticut, some of the most cherished times of my life. When my mom died, followed by my dad, I arrived back at the Unitarian congregation, and in my first service, I heard the mission. We covenant to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world. Exasperated, my first thought was, oh, for God's sake, I've been nurturing my parents and I'm exhausted. I definitely want to nurture my soul, but can't I leave the social justice to those who are more grounded and currently more nurtured than I am? I knew that when a person feels healthy and happy, they tend to give. But what I wanted was the opposite. If I have to serve, will my altruistic behavior directly contribute to my well-being? A Mormon preacher named Gordon B. Hinckley had this to say about service. One of the great ironies of life is this: he or she who serves almost always benefits more than he or she who is served. But how is that possible? If we're giving of our time, our energy, possibly our money, isn't that essentially the depletion of self for the benefit of another? We will often hear, service helps us become more compassionate. Well, don't get me wrong, compassion is a wonderful quality. But doesn't it benefit others more than ourselves? We also sometimes hear service puts our own lives in a more realistic perspective, helping us feel more grateful for our blessings. Okay, we gain a different perspective. It still sounds somewhat ephemeral, but greater gratitude certainly can be very beneficial to our outlook on life. So that's something anyway. Some of you may have heard about studies in the natural world in which seemingly altruistic behavior is not ultimately altruistic because it creates a symbiotic relationship that benefits the community. And by benefiting the community, it benefits the individuals that live within it. In fact, some studies suggest that altruism is hardwired in the human brain. By temporarily inactivating a part of the brain involved in impulse control, the prefrontal cortex, Neuroscientists have discovered compelling evidence that we're hardwired for altruism. A paper presented at Dartmouth University by undergraduates had this to say in adapted language. Altruism is one of the few things that puzzled the father of evolution, Charles Darwin. A worker bee cannot reproduce and exists only for the good of the hive and the propagation of the queen bee's genes. A vampire bat will spontaneously share food through regurgitation. A man will help a visually impaired woman cross the street. And US residents pay taxes, of which a portion goes to welfare recipients. But is altruism good for the altruistic person? The biological definition of altruism argues that such acts are undertaken to, 1, make the altruist feel better, 2, increase the reproductive success of the altruist, or 3, increase the prevalence of genes for altruistic behavior. And yes, a definition of altruism suggests that altruism is in fact mutually beneficial. Certainly, evolutionary history has seen the success of countless mutually beneficial symbiotic relationships, from lichen, such as algae and fungus, to E. coli in our stomachs. But altruism that helps my species as a whole still sounds community-based rather than individually based. Never mind what's in my stomach. How does service benefit me as an individual? Okay, it makes me more grateful for my blessings, but what else? Well, research suggests that not only does altruism have a positive effect on mental health, but it also plays a key role in shaping physical health. More specifically, studies have linked altruism to longevity, physical functioning, and better health behaviors. Many studies report that volunteers tend to live significantly longer than those who do not volunteer. Researchers named Thoit and Hewitt tracked volunteering and well-being over many years in thousands of people and were able to show this causal effect. When a person increased volunteer work, all measures of well-being increased on average afterwards for as long as the volunteer work lasted. Elderly volunteers were shown to benefit even more than middle-aged volunteers. So let's consider for a moment the words of philosopher and theologian Albert Schweitzer. I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among us who will be really happy are those who have sought and found how to serve. In the early 1990s, I was living near the neighborhood in Toronto called the Gay Village. I saw firsthand the physical ravages of the AIDS epidemic, and I wanted to help somehow. I also had never had a close-up experience with physical suffering or death, and I wanted to experience illness firsthand. This was a goal that was very much about me. I was comforted by a frontline AIDS worker who said to me, research has shown that the best way to keep volunteers engaged is to be sure they are getting something highly personal out of the work they're doing, be it a new learning of some kind, a new skill, or perhaps new friendships. As a buddy to people with AIDS, I was partnered with a male couple, both of whom had HIV. Those were the tragic days before the cocktail medications, in which a person with HIV could go from seemingly good health to dementia and then death in a matter of 6 weeks or less. Paul and Dave were reserved people, surrounded just by Dave's father and one friend. Dave's illness progressed rapidly. It was only a matter of weeks from when his dementia had us chasing him down the street with him only wearing a diaper, to days cuddling with him when he could no longer walk or talk. His partner, father, and friend were too grief-stricken to be able to bear seeing him in his failed state. So in his final days, his two companions were his nurse and me. On a Sunday morning at 5 a.m., I woke up in my apartment to what can only be described as a vision. But it wasn't visual, exactly. It was as if the room was vibrating with a powerful light emanating both from inside and around me. And I had a profound feeling of joy and peace. All of life felt like it was exactly as it should be. And I was overwhelmed with a sense of intense happiness. It was an awe-inspiring experience I had never had before nor since. I luxuriated in that feeling, eventually falling back to sleep. At 8 a.m., Paul called me to tell me that Dave had died at 5 a.m. that morning. You know, I had never been one to think about being visited by spirits. I imagined eternity as some mucky cosmic soup into which everyone melted. Of course, we can't know what eternity is like, but the experience I had was as real to me as standing here speaking to you. What it gave me was a peacefulness about death that I hadn't felt previously, and that I treasure to this day. My service to Dave permanently altered my view of death. Then, someone very close to my family and me was diagnosed with HIV/AIDS. Because of my experience, I was much less fearful when I received this news than I would have been otherwise. And I was able to offer insights to my family from firsthand experience. My service allowed me to clearly communicate these insights that helped those I loved to be less fearful. Their strength bolstered my strength. My service provided me with a perspective that eased my fear and those of the people I loved. What are some other benefits of service to the individual? Through volunteer work, we can be given responsibilities one could not attain through regular employment. We can pursue interests that haven't been afforded to us in our jobs or our personal lives, such as teaching, writing, gardening, making assessments, childcare, and many other roles. Service can also fulfill our long-held dreams. One of my dreams had always been to be a kindergarten teacher. Then one day it occurred to me, wait a minute, I can be a kindergarten teacher. And I signed on for that grade level of UU religious education. And just like that, one of my dreams was fulfilled in real life. Something else service can do is provide a person with a sense of belonging in whatever venue the service takes place. Some psychologists and philosophers believe that a feeling of belonging to something greater than oneself is a key to happiness. It's important to talk about one of the potential pitfalls of service. At times, service to another or to a cause can function as an unhealthy escape. The notion of codependency talks about people who will serve or become involved with another's needs and lives to the detriment of themselves. Even when I was serving as a buddy to Dave and Paul, I remember changing their cat litter while thinking, I haven't even changed my own litter at home. The adage of being on a plane and putting on one's own oxygen mask before placing one on a child is very important to remember when it comes to self-care versus care of another. And let's talk for a minute about compassion. Research has also shown that people who have compassion for others also demonstrate greater compassion for themselves. And there's no doubt in my mind that self-compassion has a tremendous impact on our own behavior. If we can overlook our mistakes and forgive ourselves for our faults, our approach to life is much freer in terms of trying new things, adapting to change, and pursuing our goals. In the words of the Dartmouth paper presentation, altruism promotes the following: deeper positive social integration, distraction from self-preoccupation, enhanced meaning and purpose, a more active lifestyle, and the presence of positive emotions, such as kindness, that displace harmful negative emotional states. We know that altruism enhances our spiritual health, but we see that it's entirely possible to assert that altruism also enhances our mental and physical health. And service confers a type of nobility that can't be bought or otherwise finagled. In the words of Martin Luther King, Jr., everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. May it be so.
So we invite you to reflect with us together. In what ways can service benefit others and benefit us? Our closing hymn is number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
Let it shine, let it shine. shine, shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Whoa, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Woo.
Today's benediction is attributed to the Talmud. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. Go in peace.
Our worship has ended, let our service begin. Go in peace, go in joy, go in love.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. Thank you to our tech team. Thank you to everyone who was a part of the service. Thank you to our custodians. Thank you to everyone. Enjoy this wonderful, beautiful day.